So just to let you know, we are just getting started with QAComplete. We are strong HP ALM users currently. However, show of hands, who's using HP ALM for test management currently? Yeah, you like it? Yeah, that's what I thought. Look, I'm not here to bash HP. They have a wonderful tool. However, it is not flexible. All right, and where we're going with test management tools, where we're going with automation tools, we need a test management tool that's flexible. So Andy, why don't you tell them about what you do?
Yeah, so as Rich mentioned, we're very new to QAComplete. We've had Test Complete for about a year. Rich and I kind of are like the Mikey from the Life commercial where, you know, we're the ones that try stuff first. We tried API testing first. We tried Agile first. I often tell a story that the very first time that I went through Agile, my boss asked me, "What do you think?" And I said, "This is the stupidest methodology I ever heard in my life." But it was because we were doing it all wrong. So we had another cycle through. We did it again, and now we're an Agile shop. So when I go out to train testers and how they're going to be using Agile, their first reaction is, "This is the stupidest methodology I've ever seen." And I say, "I know, I feel your pain, I'm with you." So Rich and I have been working for about 11 years on all of these things. And as he mentioned, a couple of years ago, we were called into our boss's office and he said, "I want a capture playback tool." And you've heard, I won't reiterate what you've heard in a lot of other presentations about capture playback tool. But long story short, we had a lot of success with Test Complete, and that led us to investing QAComplete. A lot of our testers had a lot of complaints about ALM. So we got into it and we said, okay, let's take a look at QAC. So I'll let you take over.
Great.
Here, Rich.
So Andy mentioned a lot of our backstory. Again, ALM has worked for us for about 15 years. We've been ALM users, right? Great, served us well. However, in talking with HP, now Micro Focus, right, and having discussions with them, to us, they were there to sell more products. They didn't really want to listen to our concerns, where we were headed. They were just there to say, yeah, you can do that, just drop another 50 grand and you're fine. So they just focused on upselling, really. And give you an example, I got an email last week. "Hello, I'm so-and-so from Micro Focus. I'm your new sales representative." Is that spam? I don't know. Somebody's out there telling me they're my new sales representative. Terrific. With SmartBear, pick up the phone. I speak to a live person. We talk twice a week. How is it going? You don't get that with HP. So right there, they listen. SmartBear listens, and that makes me want to use their products. HP was not aligned with our vision or our use cases. They wanted to take over the whole suite from development all the way through all of your build management, all the way through your testing. And we were like, no, we need to plug and play as needed. We're going to find the best tools to do the job, and we're going to integrate those together. We are heavily focused on metrics, and I will let Andy speak to metrics. Why are we so focused on metrics?
So one of the things that we've been asked to report on, in especially the last few years as far as KPIs, are two things major. Our automation ROI. There have been a number of talks. I heard, I think the fellow's name was Corey, talked about how people who don't understand automation think you're going to automate everything 100% with no maintenance, and we all know that's not reality. So you start targeting what's good to automate, where can we get the payback. The other area was kind of interesting because our QA managers and testers needed a detailed analysis of which requirements in a release and which tests were failing. Contrary to that, our vice president wanted a one-pager looking across all our projects that basically said this project is 87% done, this one is 56% done. And we couldn't get that directly out of ALM. So what I worked on for some time was pulling that stuff out of the ALM database, storing it in a data store, and then doing reporting out of that. So we did a lot of reporting on our own. We did a lot of SQL querying of the database on our own. So there were weaknesses, we thought, with the ALM tool. Go ahead, Rich.
Sure. So we've talked about why we want to move, right? So obviously, Andy and I did some assessments, and we said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be better tooling out there. I went to my boss probably about 7 years ago. I said, hey, why don't we write our own test management tool? We develop software, let's write our own. Get out.
We get that a lot.
You're crazy. Get out. I need something supported. I don't know if you're going to be here. I need something more formal. I want to be under support where something breaks or we have questions and the constant upgrade cycle, we're in the loop. So we're not writing our own. QA, we're not developers, unless you're writing test automation. But he didn't want to be in the business of supporting a test management tool. So that led us to look around. We looked at Jira. We looked at TFS. We looked at QAComplete. And after some of the experience with us using QAComplete and talking to SmartBear, we said, hey, let's give this a shot. So what do we do first? First things first, take a step back. What problem are you trying to solve, right? And the whole thing was looking at use cases for the tool. How do you use the tool? What do you need the tool to do?
So this involved a lot of dialogue with our QA managers and our testers, and we ended up assembling a team of about roughly a dozen managers and testers. We have about 60 in our group altogether.
Probably 120 across the
across the entire company. But in our group, we have about 60 for our apps. So we assembled this group of about a dozen, and they were basically our test team. We would review use cases. We would review process against the tool. We would have a couple of sessions every week where we got together and kind of hammered out. We started with requirements in the beginning, and we kind of plowed through that. Then, we started with releases, then we went to requirements, then we went to tests and test sets, and then we went to defects. And we wanted them to buy in. We didn't want to jam a tool down anybody's throat. So we wanted them to pull in. And it was kind of interesting because, you know, sometimes there's a little bit resistance. Like, we knew you guys were thinking about moving away from ALM. Are you serious? Yeah, we're serious. We're serious this time. So in general, we found that the buy-in was pretty good. There were a lot of cases where some of the managers of the testers would say, hey, we have such and such a process here, and we don't think QAComplete handles it or handles it right. So we got into this mode of improvise, adapt, and overcome. Can we find a way to make it happen? Another thing Rich did was he had the gentleman who was the admin for ALM act as pretty much the admin for QAComplete. So he understood it from that standpoint. So that helped out a lot. So that was kind of our flow, I think, for the last 3-4 months in going through this effort to see if QAComplete was going to work for us.
And another thing, we didn't put a hard deadline on anything, right? It was, look, prove it out. Somebody mentioned a POC earlier in one of their presentations. That's big for us. I don't want to move just to say we moved. If it's not the right tool, we're not going to do it. But we are finding that is highly adaptable. The power of APIs driving this thing, that's where it's at. Look, does HP have an open API to do that? Not really. QAComplete does, and it's very powerful. So let's talk about some of the pain points. Obviously, this did not go perfectly smooth, right? So there are some pain points that we ran across. Number one is people don't like change. Hey, I want to give you a new car. Well, why? What's the matter with my old car? Well, it's old. But right there, they're questioning, right? So people don't like change. So you really have to go in and say, make it your own. We're here to make this your Some of the things, we're moving to the cloud with QAComplete. We always ran HP on site. That meant we had database access. With QAComplete, no database access. So people kind of threw their hands up and, what do you mean? Guys, APIs. Problem solved.
The other thing that was happening too with the SQL queries is, you know, the advantage to it was any tester could go in who had access to the database and write queries. The disadvantage was any tester who had access to the database could go in and write queries. So, you know, sometimes there were these little pockets of SQL that we didn't know about that people were running for whatever they had to report on. So it was kind of tough to manage that. On the flip side, we had a lot of testers that were very good in SQL and could crank out some really good stuff.
Cool. Custom reporting. I will give you what I think is a weak point of QAComplete. I think their reporting is a weak point. However, with APIs, you can overcome that. We use Power BI, and we connect directly to those APIs. And we do all of our analytics and reporting through Power BI. Integration with automation. We have several automation tools, including TestComplete. We do use Selenium.
UFT.
We use UFT.
SOA test.
And we use SOA test. Integrating all those, so we had really tight integration with ALM, right? Windows, command line, boom, here you go. Okay, what do you do when your stuff is hosted in the cloud? Interesting. So we rethought our whole automation philosophy. I'm not a big believer in coupling automation with a test management tool. Automation should be able to run anytime, anywhere, without even knowing about a test management tool. I want those results pushed back to a test management tool. So we are in the process right now of writing our own routine to handle that. Anytime that there's a test that's run, either by development, by QA, as part of a CI/CD process, we put a flag on that test saying, push the results to QAComplete, if we're interested in those results. So that's a major shift away.
All right.
Talk about the good. The good. Oh, this is me.
That's
communication. Sorry. Yeah, I stuttered after lunch taking a nap.
You should have screamed, line.
Not following the script. The good, communication with SmartBear, we mentioned that. We had a test instance and play area ahead of time. This was mentioned during this morning's conversation. One thing we like is we like to play. We like to do demos. So we ran QAComplete in demo mode for probably about 3 to 4 months. Here was the thing. We got thrown a curveball. We told our director that, hey, we're going to do a POC. Our goal for this year was to simply do a POC and see if QAComplete was a viable tool to replace ALM. In July, we got approached and said, great, you have to, December to implement it. What? Okay, no problem, done. We'd already been using it, not a problem. So right now we are in the process of, we have about 3 groups onboarded already. They're actively using it, and we have about 3 more to go. So we're probably about 50% of the way there.
Right.
One of the things we did was, as part of this working group that met 2 times a week, for an hour, by the way, we created best practices guides. As we mentioned, we have probably about 60 to 85 users in there. Andy and I aren't going to go out and train all these users individually, right? So what we did was we created Confluence documentation. There's a set of best practices in here. Here you go. Here's all your naming conventions. Here's how you name tests. Here's how you organize defects. Here's how you do all your linking, all that stuff. And then we also created videos, instructional videos on how to use that tool. So some groups actually use the tool to house all the requirements. It is the requirements book of record for some groups. And of course, APIs. APIs are huge for us. We love APIs.
Right.
Mindset. So along with explaining to people that, yes, there is change, we also needed to explain to them that this is not ALM. This is different. Things aren't going to work exactly the same. Don't expect them to work exactly the same. So that constant message of, I did this in ALM. What were you trying to do? What is your use case? And then this is how you do it in QAComplete. Linking is critical, one of the things that we learned. Navigation, folders, organization, that's big for us. We live in one project in QAComplete. Why? Reporting, metrics. Our VP wants to look across the enterprise and see what's in flight. He doesn't want to go to 4 different projects. He wants to go to one project and say, all this is in flight. Here are the planned releases. Here's the quality of those releases.
So one of the hurdles in regard to that we had to overcome is when we started using HP ALM about a dozen years ago, we had 1 project per schema. And then after a while we had 2 projects, and then after several years we had 13 projects. So in order to do that reporting across the enterprise, that's what I was referring to a little bit earlier, where we had to extract that data, put it in a data store, and massage it in a different way, which was a lot of work.
Cool. Let's talk about data migration. Okay, you guys moved. There's 15 years worth of history in ALM. Do we want to move all that to QAComplete? Heck no. Heck no. Our plan for data migration was whatever's in flight right now, whatever's going forward, and 1 year's history worth of defects. Because any defect that's over a year old, that's not getting fixed. It's not. We're not shutting down ALM. It's there for historical purposes. We're going to let that database live. We own it. Not a big deal. So anytime somebody wants to go in there and say, gee, this defect came up or whatever, we can always do a query back to ALM and see if it's there. But this is an opportunity to start fresh, minimal data migration. That's your friend. What did we do to migrate the data? So one of the things we did was we created all these custom queries in ALM to pull out that information, stuff it back into QAComplete. It just dumps it to a temporary database and stuff it right back in using QAComplete's migration utility. Very nice, very clean. We didn't worry about any of the linking because, again, all that historical stuff, that was all linked in ALM. I can always do reporting on it, but going forward, everything will be linked in QAComplete.
So as we said, we're kind of doing a gradual phase in. We started out with a few projects, basically picking up today and going forward. We're not concerned with a lot of history and trying to move massive amounts of data. And so far that's been working for us pretty well. We've got, as Rich said earlier in the presentation, we've got 3 groups kind of in there now, putting in requirements, starting to link things in there. And so far, so good. You know, we skin our knees and our elbows every once in a while where somebody comes up with a question or something that we didn't anticipate, but we always seem to manage through it. It's also caused us to kind of take a look at our process in general of how we approach test management. And sometimes we say, you know what, the way we did it using ALM probably wasn't the best approach from a process point of view. And because we're looking at it differently now in QAComplete, we make an adjustment on that side.
Yeah, really think before you jump right in to looking at a tool, think about process, think about what questions you're really trying to answer, think about what use cases you want to satisfy, and then find a tool that does that, right? Tooling shouldn't dictate your process. You should dictate your process. Never mind the tool. Take the tool out of it. So where are we? As Andy said, we're in the process of migrating everybody. We hope to be off of ALM likely end of October completely. We'll just sunset that, put it in read-only mode. We still have to integrate a bunch of other tooling. One of the things about QAComplete, they have a nice Jira connector. That doesn't work too great when you're all in one project because it is project syncing based, right? So we have probably 50 Jira boards, one QAComplete project. So we need to do some filtering with what gets synced. Test automation, as we mentioned, yes, there is some automation components in QAComplete to house automation parameters. They don't really suit our needs that well. Again, we have things getting kicked off from CI/CD. We have things getting kicked off from other groups that we're interested in. So I really like to house all those automation result runs back in QAComplete. So I have a mapping table of this test asset ran, what gets updated in QAComplete. A lot of that CI/CD stuff. So let's say I want to run something from QAComplete. My vision is I want to kick off an external process. I want to build that environment. I want to spin up all those tests automatically. I want to execute them. I want to tear that down, and then I want those results all written back to QAComplete. QAComplete is the book of record for everything testing. Great. And then business intelligence reporting. So we talked about the use of Microsoft's Power BI tool. We already started building reporting on that. And what are we looking at for metrics? We're looking at mean time to discover defects. We're looking at defect detection rate. We're looking at how many automation runs we did of each asset. We are looking at the life of an asset, executions per week. So we know our high value assets. If an automation asset breaks, we know our high value tests. We are looking at test coverage. We are risk-based. Look, we're in the sports world. Sports calendar isn't going to change. You're not going to tell the Red Sox, hey, yeah, that game that you're playing tomorrow, can you push that back by a couple days because our software isn't ready? I want to know if I ship that now, what's the risk in doing that? Right? Cool. So, open this up for questions. Let's do that. We're here for you. Look, we can tell you what we did, but everybody's different, right? We just want to give you some tips on things that you need to look at. So we'll go over here.
Question over there.
Great. I think Greg's heading over your way with the mic.
Greg is heading over the way.
Could you speak a little bit more about sending results from testing into QAComplete?
Sure. Yep. So recently, you will notice in the latest version of QAComplete, look at the release notes. There are now APIs where you can create test sets, add tests to those test sets, and update the results of those tests. After talking to SmartBear, one of our requests was to be able to do that. And guess what? It was in the next release. That's awesome. That doesn't happen with other companies. So that's how we handle that.
And just to follow up on that a little bit, as Rich said in the beginning, we're not allowed to promote projects, but what kept us going through Test Complete and into QAComplete was we could talk to these guys. And I would say at least twice a week we talk to somebody in sales, somebody in engineering, somebody in development. So the support has been great.
Yeah, you enter a ticket, there's a response within an hour.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever entered a ticket with HP and see how long it takes for a response to get back to you. It's not an hour.
Hi, I have a question regarding the QAComplete being not on-premise in the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Was that an option, or were you forced to go?
That is an option. So look, the days of housing big data centers and infrastructure on site, those are ending, right? The cloud is much more efficient to do that. Could we host it on site? Absolutely. But we have teams. If I put that data center in Bristol running, what happens if Bristol goes down? Right? I'm at risk all of a sudden. We're about mitigating risk. For us, to put it in the cloud, to not have to worry about administration other than users and access to projects, right? To have all that patching taken care of for you, that's big for us. I had a resource that was probably 50% of his time was managing ALM and doing ALM administration. I now have half a resource free.
Yeah, if I could just follow up on that, because that's a very good point. We actually had an instance pretty recently where we had to upgrade the Oracle database that our ALM database was on, and we went to our staging to try it, and it didn't work too well, and then we went back and said, well, this version of the database does not coincide with this version of ALM. So that was a headache we wanted to avoid in the future. So that's a good point. Other questions?
Good?
Are there connectors for tools other than TestComplete?
Absolutely. So a lot of that, we built our own connectors to do that stuff. So again, I talk about firing automation. So built into QAComplete, you can fire Selenium, TestComplete, other automation tools. I guess our problem with it wasn't extensible enough. So look, QAComplete has great potential. I'm not going to tell you it's going to solve all your problems, but from where our perspective, it solves a lot of them, and I see great potential in doing it. Our relationship with SmartBear is such that they get where we want to head. They get it, and that says a lot.
I have a question. I've talked to a lot of people who are, considering test management tools or not even using one, doing a lot of ad hoc, Excel sheets. That's what works for them.
Right.
Like, why did you guys? Was it just the scalable aspect of it? Is that why you moved to an actual tool, or what benefits have you found?
Absolutely. Yeah, look, there's groups using Google Sheets. There's groups using Excel. I will tell you, all of our automation results get written to a separate database, right? It's just, here's all your assets, and I can do all my automation reporting, all those executions off of it. But a tool brings to you, same thing with TestComplete, with any tool, right? It just brings that usability to the party, right?
And traceability, too.
And traceability
That's
to
huge.
it as well.
That's tougher with spreadsheets.
I just wanted to echo that about process. And the other thing is that we work with a third-party vendor heavily, and we found that it was a nice way that multiple parties that maybe weren't in the company could access the system with less security-related issues. So they actually use QAComplete as well, this third-party vendor, because they built a big system that we use. We file our defects in there. And the processes that we follow, they also enable custom fields. So
Right.
You can create custom, there's the default fields, things like the name of the defect and priority, et cetera. We actually have a whole financial approval system that we have imbued our process in that tool. So people sort of have to go through that because everything that is built by this vendor has to be approved. So there are other uses to that. So I just want to say, totally on process, because if it's a tool and nobody has a process to follow, why would anybody use it?
Absolutely.
I'd like to follow up on that. That's a really good point. He mentioned the custom fields. Back when we were in ALM, I mentioned earlier, each project had its own schema, and we kind of got in a bad habit because we didn't know any better. We'd add custom fields, and then somebody else in another project would say, I want that one, and somebody else in another project would say, I don't want that one. So when I was going through my effort to consolidate that information, user field 1 in one project was equivalent to user field 7 in another one. So it kind of made myself and the developers crazy in trying to bring that data back together. The other thing that that history made us do is we have added some custom fields, but we kind of put people's feet to the fire before we do it.
We take them out back, we grill them, we shine a bright light in their face, and why do you need that?
Yeah. And we look through the existing fields and then we say, well, you know, we have this field over here. Does it mean the same thing as what you're trying to add? So there's a little bit of a process there before we add a custom field. Before it was like, you want one? No problem, you have one. We don't do that anymore.
And it's standardization, right? Across the enterprise, I can look, what do we look like? There's not one project that looks different or anything like that. People at the top, they don't want to know that stuff. Give me this information all in a standard format.
In ALM, when you have multiple projects, you can restrict your users from seeing other people's projects. Can you control who sees what project in QAComplete?
We don't. You can, however, we don't. I want to see what that group's doing. Go for it.
And we have run into cases where people look into other projects for tests that they can pull in, especially for integration tests going from application A to application B.
You want to see their requirements? Go ahead, look at their requirements. Here they are. Make sure that your changes aren't breaking their requirements.
Just to follow up to that question, can you change the security so that they don't necessarily edit that project?
You could. We don't. We have traceability. We know who to go see.
There's history. If somebody broke it, we'll know who did it. Question here.
That's the trust, right? So look, you could put restrictions on all this stuff. Our thought is don't restrict people unless they need to be restricted.
With that being said, too, is there any versioning? I guess y'all got the
There
history
is.
of
All your tests, they're all versioned. Yep.
Okay. And for people updating it, can you give access? Because we're in a situation sometimes we have developers helping us out with regression testing. So we actually don't want them to go in there and just change a lot of our tests. Can you change the access for it?
Probably. I haven't been there yet. I'm not going to speak to something I don't know about, so I do not know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question, probably for one of the smart.
Yeah.
That never came up with us. That's a good.
Go see Jeff.
Yeah, so
Yeah, talk to Jeff.
There's been a lot of questions on on-prem versus in the cloud, a couple other different feature questions. We have the product owner right over there in the hat. So Jeff Martin will be happy to answer any questions. Other than that, you guys did an awesome job. Thank you for sharing your story of why you moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We really appreciated it.
We don't do
you.
presentations for a living, so
You guys were a true dynamic duo. Thank you.
thank you.
you.